From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made in the fall of 2024, when a new academic year began with a new benchmark. The average cost for a year of American private higher education had surpassed $60,000. A handful of schools reached the $100,000 mark. Meanwhile, fewer high school students were applying to college. Incoming freshman classes were down about 15% from their peak in 2010. Some of that is because of the well-publicized enrollment cliff, but some is because Americans tend to say they doubt the value of a higher ed degree, or at least they don't believe in the value the way they used to. Just over a month ago, Nazareth University welcomed a new president. Maureen Finney takes on the challenge of leading the institution that has around 2,000 undergraduate students, 500 graduate students. We invited President Finney to join us to discuss the future of higher education, what schools are teaching, what's changing, what students are asking for, how to deal with the enrollment cliff, and more. And she's generous enough to join us in studio today. President Maureen Finney of Nazareth University, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Evan. I'm really honored to be here.
And a little bit of a backgrounder for yourself, if you could introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit about your own sort of work history and your path to this position.
Sure. So my path to this position was not direct. I am a physician assistant by clinical training, and I entered the higher education landscape by being a PA faculty member, became a department chair, then became a dean at WXXI University of Health Professions. All while teaching and learning and administering, I saw patients at the Erie County Medical Center for 25 years in primary care. And then I became the provost and executive vice president at Hilbert College for about a year and a half before I took the provost post here at Nazareth in 2022. So I've been here in Rochester now happily for 4 years. Really love Nazareth University, and I'm deeply honored to assume this role.
And you're from Buffalo originally.
I sure am. Go Bills.
So not too far down the road.
Yes.
When you were of college-going age, where did you go?
I went to undergraduate at Niagara University. That's where I met my husband. My father was a teacher there for 45 years, so it was a beautiful pathway. And
do you remember, what did you pay for your higher education?
Oh, I don't remember, but I know it wasn't what we charge now. It was, I think, room and board was maybe $1,500, and tuition was probably about $7,000 or $8,000.
Yeah, I mean, according to the Education Data Initiative, since 1963, inflation-adjusted tuition has risen 312% at public universities, 259% at private universities and colleges. Yeah. And I know that doesn't surprise you. I know you live in that world now. But again, that's inflation adjusted. That's not just raw dollars.
Right.
So the cost of higher ed has truly gone up immensely for American families. A lot driven by the 80s and 90s, but certainly here we are today.
Right.
So I want to talk a little bit about how you see this. And I saw something interesting on the Nazareth website. So the cost for a year at Nazareth is listed at about $67,000. But your website says 0 students pay the full sticker.
Correct.
0.
Correct.
So why is that the full sticker then?
Right. Good point. I think you're putting a pulse on higher education phenom that we really do, I think, have to address as an industry. When you have a sticker price like that across the board, and Nazareth is not different, I think it is a rate limiter to those that think that maybe access and opportunity aren't for them. And Nazareth is all about access and opportunity. And so we work very hard through our endowment, through scholarship opportunities to make sure that we can meet learners where they are so that they can have a Nazareth education.
So when you talk about a rate limiter, I think what I hear you saying is even if no one is paying the sticker price, the fact that the sticker price is that high means someone's going to look at that and go, that ain't for me. I'll never afford that.
Absolutely. And so the equal message, I think, is, and I think we're doing a much better job on this now, is really connecting with families and connecting with students about what a standard package would look like, and the opportunities both from institutional resources and external resources to help finance the education.
Is there pressure on schools like yours to have a sticker price that's higher than the national average because you want to create the impression that you're better than the national average?
You know, that's a really good point. I don't think it's an absolute. I think, you know, for as much as the sticker price could be off-putting, there are a set of consumers that want to say, well, I'm going to X school and they're going to discount it this much and this is how much they value me. So sometimes the scholarship really is a value statement from the institution to the student to say, look how much they value me. So it is a bit of a quagmire of being competitive in the field, of ensuring that we can articulate the why of the investment. And my leadership team and I are really focused on that this year. We realize this is a financial investment, it's a psychological investment, it's an emotional investment, it's an intellectual investment. So what is the ROI of that investment?
That is a more forthright answer than I expected. I expected you to tell me that, no, there's no pressure to, you're saying there is a psychological component to all of this.
Absolutely. I think we'd be fooling ourselves if we didn't realize that it's a consumer-driven process. We have to tell the story of the why, and people love to feel valued and seen. We all do. And so the external-facing price point that we advertise, equal to that has to be how we're going to help people get there so that they can have access to a Nazareth University education.
Is it fair to say that you think a student who's paying, let's say their family or the student is paying $44,000,
Mm-hmm.
would they feel more valued if they were able to say, I'm getting a third off every year. Nazareth values me that much. They're not going to third off sticker. I'm only paying $44 versus Nazareth costs $44 and I'm paying full way.
Yes, there is that. There's a huge body of literature now about the consumer psychology of college going and families. And I think the one part that we always keep in mind of in our leadership team is, financial literacy often goes with those that have had the opportunity to be educated in a higher education system. And so as we as a university are ever focused on ensuring access to all, those that have parents or grandparents who didn't go to college might not even know what questions to ask to get them to a place where they could actually feel like they could A, afford, and B, belong in the institution. So we actually have first-generation financial aid counselors, first-generation admission counselors to work with that body of students.
Here's the cynical side of me.
Okay.
Tell me why, if no one is paying full boat, you don't just cut costs to begin with, cut that sticker down.
It's a lot of institutions have done that. They call it a tuition reset. And you would think that would work, but retrospective analysis shows that it doesn't. The consumer psychology doesn't work in that way. That eventually, the cost of educating the students, as you noted so nicely in your introductory comments, it is going up. Salaries have to keep up with being competitive. The benefit profile, the healthcare,
which you know something about.
Yes.
Yes.
All of that. None of those premiums are decreasing. And so for an institution like Nazareth, and this is not uncommon, 90% or 90 cents of every dollar in our operational budget comes from tuition and fees. So it is the lifeblood of a strong institution.
And you're an institution that you want to grow.
Absolutely.
You're, again, about 2,000 undergrad, 500 graduate students. How big do you want to get?
Ideally, I would like to get to a total enrollment of about 2,750 with the case mix. That's my PA
so
term.
10% growth from where you're at?
About 10% would be great. Yeah. We have the capacity on campus to be able to house that increase of students. We have the classroom space. We have the infrastructure that we could easily accommodate that. The thing I think that's even more important, though, and you and I were just chatting about this quickly, when I first started in higher education, you could say, I am going to grow this, and you didn't really have to have the strategic aim or plan behind the how of it. This is going to be strategic growth, looking where mission and market meet. So an example of this and the commitment of the institution of this is the starting of our PA program, which, of course, I'm very proud of. That's at a premier example of where Nazareth is looking at market opportunity and mission alignment with our institution. So likewise, we are soon hopeful to be starting a nurse practitioner program in women's health, a doctorate in social work. These are all opportunities where we know there are learners seeking education, and it'll strengthen our institution as well.
And you seem to be asking very direct questions about what are the jobs of the future and what are the lines of work and the careers that are going to be durable no matter what comes down the pike with technology?
Absolutely. So I think the beauty of Nazareth is we know who we are as an institution because of our founding, and we do embrace the liberal arts and sciences because it does teach you to discern. It does. They come in 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah. 3 weeks. Okay.
Very excited. Yes. Come back, students. We miss you.
They're on the doorstep. If you've got questions, comments, listeners, as we talk the future of higher ed here, you can email the program as always. The email address is connections@wxxi.org.
At some point, folks are just going to say this is not worth the investment, and we can't get ourselves there. I mean, at this moment, I can absolutely say higher education is worth the investment. Because the price point is at that level. But I think, like most things, it's similar to degree chases of certain professions going to a doctoral degree and then students having to incur more debt to have the same level of functionality. I think we have to look at that at higher education as well. And national leaders all across the spectrum are constantly having these conversations about what is that sweet spot of ensuring we have a strong financial model, and a strong financial model for most institutions is enrollment. It's not there. Of course, is a subset of the premier institutions, the Ivy League institutions that have billion-dollar endowments and are able to offer things. That's not 90% of the campuses across the state. So we do have to keep our eye on that.
I mean, certainly the market, this is where the market will tell you if it's too expensive.
Absolutely.
And in some ways, that has started to happen, although a lot of probably what we've seen is enrollment cliff, which we're going to talk about in a moment. The market will tell you if there's no return on investment anymore.
Yes. And, with some of the new federal government guidelines of ensuring that we are transparent about the value of education, we are being encouraged to ensure that our students know. What I would say is in institutions like Nazareth, many of our students who major in the liberal arts also double major in professional degrees and have many minors. And so, some of the statistics that I'm really proud of about, Nazareth and our education is the 6-month placement graduation rate. But on average, our students complete 5 experiential learning opportunities before they graduate. So study abroad, internships, externships. And 99% of those supervisors said they would hire a Nazareth graduate. So while I know that the narrative is there's no value in those liberal arts degrees, I would show this data as equally important to say, no, they are a critical part of our workforce. They are getting hired, and they're contributing to the greater good.
Let me grab a phone call. This is Adam in Rochester on the phone with President Maureen Finney of Nazareth University. Hey, Adam, go ahead.
Hi. So my name is Adam Rich, and I'm just wondering, how does faculty scholarship play a role in student success, and how does Nazareth really promote or sustain faculty scholarship, as we try to gain student enrollments and increase retention rates?
Oh, that's a great question, Adam. Thank you for asking that. Teaching, scholarship, and service are the 3 pillars of what make up a faculty portfolio and what's so important about it. And at Nazareth, we have extraordinary scholarship on our campus. We've had many Fulbright scholars, which I'm very, very proud of. As part of the tenure and promotion process, scholarship is heavily looked at. We actually use Boyer's model of scholarship to ensure that certainly it's wonderful to publish a paper in an R1 journal, but equally important is the scholarship of innovation and creativity and teaching and learning. So that's one arm of it. In addition, we have faculty leaders who lead our Office of Institutional Research and Scholarship. So we have a whole day on campus, and it's usually in April. So, Adam, if you're in town, I'd like to invite you. You'll love it, where our students get to present their faculty-related scholarship together, and it's a transformative moment. So, while I really like your question, I think a part of the underpinning here is this is part of the piece of the value contribution of being in a higher education environment. It's the scholarship of inquiry and research that's oh so important, of asking questions that we don't have answers to. So Nazareth is really strong in that regard. You know, what I always say to people is, you know, we might be smaller in size, but we are certainly mighty on the Nazareth campus when it comes to scholarship.
Adam, thank you for the phone call. It's 844-295-TALK, 844-295-8255 if you want to join the program, 263-WXXI if you call from Rochester, 263-9994. So on that question about academic sort of exploration and achievement, one of the trends that seems to be kind of parallel to what we've been talking about is, so grades are way up. And I don't have all the data in front of me. I certainly don't have data from NAS, although you know, Harvard's grades have been pretty well publicized. You know, I think a generation and a half ago, the average Harvard class, 25% students got A's. Now it's more than 60%. And, you know, I think students are smart. I don't know that they're that much smarter than they used to be. And I've taught exactly one class in my life. I was telling President Finney before the program, I taught not an undergrad. I was an adjunct for one semester at Nazareth more than a decade ago. And I had a great experience. I'm a human being. I didn't want to see any students fail. I had one student who just wasn't doing the work, and I'm like, what can I do to get this student? Like, don't come to Nazareth and then fail a class like this. So I'm trying to pull the student forward, and maybe I'm not tough enough. But it seems like the culture used to be more students would show up, they'd be undeclared, they'd figure it out. It would be this academic exploration. They would be challenged. Professors had high standards. You could fail if you didn't do the work. And now it's like, well, prices are up, and the Trump administration is saying, I need to see ROI in every single major. And students are looked at as like clients, and you really want clients to be happy. So you want them to walk away thinking, okay, I got decent grades. I can set myself up. I'm for a good future. I don't know anybody who's looking at grades anymore and transcripts. Maybe they do. But it just feels different. Am I overthinking it, or do you think that change in culture is there?
I don't know if it's there in that level of absolute. What I would say is that integrity and setting our students up for success is primary. So at Nazareth, we've done a lot of backing up the train, if you will, of knowing what students need from the moment they put their feet on campus to be successful. And part of that is establishing expectations and outcomes from the very, very beginning. And we've done a lot of professional development with faculty and staff about what that means. We've completely restructured their entrance to college course. You know, most campuses have the one credit course in that regard to say, you know, this is what it means to be successful. In addition, I have to really applaud the faculty because while they are rigorous for certain, they are so supportive on the success of the student. Meeting with the students often, you know, campus office hours are always busy on our campus. And many of these degree programs lead to licensure. So we have to ensure that our students are prepared the first time they sit for those exams. So there really can't be that grade inflation just for the sake of, you know, the sake to do it. I do think that, you know, the transition from high school to college, the biggest leap is this cultural difference of you really do have to show your work, and you have to produce in college. You have to come prepared for your exam. You know, I think where I see students sometimes struggling is that leap of, oh, it'll be fine. They'll let me take the exam the next day, and it's just not like that.
Do you think your students are students first or clients first?
Oh, students first.
Students first.
When I was provost, not too many months ago now,
yeah, right.
We developed a whole new student thriving framework of what it means to have students at the center of what we do and how we do it. So we have intentional strategies, academic support strategies, psychosocial strategies, financial strategies to really surround the student experience. So it's been an all-campus in effort, which I'm very proud of, and we've seen record year-over-year fall student retention.
Do you think in higher ed sometimes in other places students are treated like clients first? Is there a pitfall there?
Perhaps. I have had the privilege of always working in private higher education. I haven't worked in a big system where perhaps that could be. I've worked at places where your faculty and staff know your name. In fact, commencement has always been one of my favorite days because I know the students, and to see them at that culminating point is such a full circle moment, not just for them, but for me as well. So, I think human beings, no matter where you are, like I said earlier, like to be seen and heard and valued, and that's what we do at Nazareth.
Let me read an email that I got this morning before the program from CJ in Rochester. CJ says, driving across New York State on Saturday and looking at small college towns where the college has recently closed, it got me thinking, what about having skilled trades majors offered at private colleges? A school like Union College in Schenectady benefits from having engineering combined with liberal arts. All students, engineering and otherwise, take the core liberal arts curriculum. This affords engineers with the breadth they may otherwise lack and supports the entire college. By combining skilled trades with liberal arts, we will strengthen the colleges by opening a larger pool of applicants. The students benefit from the breadth provided for skilled trades and from critical reasoning and flexibility provided by the liberal arts curriculum. Our nation benefits by having a larger segment of society more prepared for changing economic needs. That's CJ in Rochester. What do you think?
Great question, CJ, or great thought, actually. It's almost like you're seeing my future ahead here, CJ. As we are strategically planning forward, right now I'm in the middle of my listening session across Rochester and the region, and our fall assembly day when faculty and staff are back is to say, what will our students say about us for our next 100 years? How will we have mission and market meeting? And so all ideas are on the table about how to strengthen both traditional teaching and learning and perhaps a-traditional teaching and learning. There's obviously some folks that are in this space and doing this really, really well. So an examination of what it would take to make that possible and probable would be something we'd have to look at. But I like the idea.
CJ, thank you very much. Debbie emails the program to say, a few months ago, I wrote in regarding a similar discussion that my grandson was currently attending UB as opposed to MIT. The cost differential is vast. The panel indicated he should be attending MIT due to the recognition of MIT as a better education. My daughter has a $50,000 school loan with a $600 a month payment with a family. Her monthly expenses include daycare. That's a steep payment on top of those expenses. I cannot even imagine what that payment might be on a $200,000 loan out of college. How can we expect middle-class America to pay that loan payment? It seems only the upper echelon can afford those prestigious schools compared to 30 to 40 years ago.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, we kind of pulled on that thread earlier today that, where is that tender point of ensuring that the financial model for the institution is what it needs to be and that we're not advocating access for those that want a high-quality education. And what I say to students is your higher education experience is really a lot of what you make out of it. What is your agency to engage in as many opportunities that you can while you're on campus and in your classroom and things. So, that's a real example, and I appreciate that.
Dallas wants to know if you have a lot of foreign students on campus.
We don't have a lot of international students. We have perhaps about 15 to 20. So that's obviously a market we'll be interested in growing and strengthening. There's a lot of opportunity there, but currently right now that's where we are.
And he's referencing hearing some conversations, I think probably at University of Rochester and other places where they've got bigger populations, foreign students, particularly Chinese students.
Yeah.
Is it correct that we're seeing fewer Chinese students coming to the United States in this current climate?
It is, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Dallas, thank you for that. And then one more here A couple from two different Davids. One of the Davids is just asking about why not use your endowment to bring down costs. So this is a great time to do Endowment 101 again.
It is.
Whenever I've got a university president, we try to do that. And I read recently that the Nazareth University endowment surpassed $100 million.
Yes.
And, everything is relative. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I think University of Rochester, oh boy, I'm going to get myself in trouble. It's like $2 billion? 1 billion, 3 billion, it's in there. It's over. It's with a B,
sure,
not the M's like yours.
Right.
But $100 million is
mm-hmm.
is that a good number for you?
It's a strong number, and it's going to grow.
And what does it mean functionally that you can do with it?
So functionally, there are designated funds that you can take certain percentage out to be able to scholarship students. And so getting to the question is, the more we grow that number, the greater percentage we can take out and the greater percentage we can scholarship. And so that is an absolute aim of mine as part of my presidency, is to grow the endowment so that we can continue to offset the cost with tuition, with scholarship dollars towards tuition.
For those who hear $100 million and think of it as a bank account that you can just draw from, can you explain?
Yeah, it's not like that. There's rules and regs of what you can take, when you can take it, and what the funds can be used for. Many of those funds are designated for specific purposes, and not just for general operating expenses per se, or for general scholarship dollars. So we work with our advancement office and our finance office to optimize those resources for our students as much as possible, again, so that we can have access and opportunity.
And if you're just joining us, in the first half hour, President Finney mentioned that roughly 90% of your budget
mm-hmm.
is paid for by tuition and fees. That Nazareth University sticker price is $67K for everything, but nobody's paying $67K. What's the average student paying?
The average discount is between 35 and 40% off the tuition.
Pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But everybody's getting something off.
Everybody's getting something.
How come nobody's paying full boat? Nobody put their hand up like, I can pay for this.
No, and you'd be surprised too. Is sometimes even when we look at that, those higher earners, family with higher income, they're usually the more savvy to ask for more scholarship dollars.
In general, it seems like you think that you're in a pretty strong financial position compared to your peers. CJ mentioned driving around the state and seeing, occasionally driving past literally a closed school.
Yeah.
We've seen that
yeah.
starting to happen.
Yeah.
We probably would see more if the trends continue.
Yep.
How do you feel your position financially?
We're strong. I mean, we just went through our S&P rating and had a very solid response to that. And there is no time anymore to be casual about where you are and how you are. There has got to be urgent innovation and action every single day on a higher education campus to ensure that you're not one of those in that story. And so that hasn't always been easy for higher education. I think the idea of thinking through things completely and seeing all sides of the coin before you act was a way that we operated. And now we really have to say, what are we going to earn and what are we going to do this year? What is the goal and how will we measure our success? So that is the way I've led my whole time in higher education. And I think people appreciate that you can have ideology of how things happen, but you have to get it done. And that's what we're going to continue to do at Nazareth so that we continue to strengthen our financial position.
When we come back from the only break this hour with the new president of Nazareth University, Maureen Finney, we're going to talk about academics at Nazareth and more about specifically how the president sees the current offerings and what might change in the future, how they're going to determine what to offer and the kind of the feedback they're getting from students. And there's a lot more to discuss. I know we're going to talk a little about AI. They teach AI there. And a lot more with the president of Naz on the other side here. This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. So we've had some folks from Nazareth on talking about artificial intelligence, some very talented people over there who have a lot of industry experience, who have been teaching some of your students about not just the functionality of AI, but ethics and the future. I want to set that aside for 1 second and ask you a different question.
Sure.
Is there an AI policy on campus related to the use of AI in cheating?
There is. We worked on that over the last year. The academic leadership worked on a basic tenor of what AI and academic integrity, how those things intersect. In in reality, what happens is it's really up to the faculty member to say how much or how little of AI can be used in their course. They set that standard in their syllabus right before this semester starts. So I think it's upfront, honest, and transparent with students. The reality is most of our students are coming from environments where they used AI before they even got to us.
Used it legitimately?
Yes, I would say. I mean, you always know there's always those outliers. And we've all seen the articles of,
Here's the headline in New York Magazine from a year ago. Everyone is cheating their way through college. Overstatement?
I think so. I think,
But is it a problem?
I think it can be a problem. Here's the skinny. And I think this probably comes from my PA life, is that what I learned when I first became licensed as a PA is certainly not what I would be learning now. Things evolve, and you have to evolve with it. And so what we've done on our campus is very intentional professional development in AI for our faculty. Where can you use AI? Where shouldn't you? Should you change how you assess learning? The greatest, I think, struggle is the take-home papers, and then then they run them through the systems and find that perhaps
there's all kinds of horror stories coming out now.
All of that, right?
Oh yeah.
So now many faculty are now having in-class exams way back when, like I used to do with the Blue Book, to say, what do you actually know at this point in time?
Yeah.
So I think it really calls attention, and we have extraordinary faculty at Nazareth to say, what is the take-home message that I need to assure my students have, and how am I going to assess that in a way that's fair and in a way that is integral to their learning process?
And then in terms of the classes themselves about AI, what does Nazareth currently offer?
So we have 3 or 4 undergraduate majors that have AI intertwined. We have a master's in business analytics and AI. We have the responsible Ethical AI Institute, which infuses professional development learning across our campus. I think it's like anything. I think if you were to do a snapshot or cross-section of culture on campus, we have a cross-section of folks that love AI and think that it is a significant tool and should be utilized even more heavily. And then we certainly have a cross-section of folks that don't feel that way. And so it's like anything, right? If you want to bring people into the fold, it's just continuing to educate the why of the work.
Which cross-section would you be in?
Oh, I believe there's value in AI. I think the opportunity is to say that and then to articulate why human interaction with AI is so important. So how am I going to take that body of knowledge from AI and then use my brain to articulate the critical analysis that I took from it? I think that's where we're missing, is these series of absolutes of have and have not. We as an institution are going to show the intersection.
And are students asking for that? I imagine they are.
They are. Yeah, they are. They are asking for it. I think what they've asked for and what the faculty worked so hard on last year is a policy of saying, some students are like, I didn't know I couldn't use this, or I thought this was okay to use. And now we're all just trying to get to a same sense of literacy of what does it mean on our campus.
Yeah, I mean, the bigger picture with AI that unnerves me, I mean, it's a lot of things, but one of them is that, to your point about how tools are used, we could be doing extraordinary things as human beings to gain better understanding of any number of skills, bases of knowledge. We could be smarter than we've ever been. But I think most of us are going, oh, cool, something that thinks for me, and I don't have to. And, we've talked a couple times on this program about a recent piece in The Atlantic about the society-wide change in reading. That, number one, there are students showing up in college campuses saying, like, read a whole book. I don't have to read books in high school. Or that most Americans are not reading for pleasure, or not reading books for pleasure anymore, haven't read a book in the last year. And so we're reading shorter. We're reading a lot, but it's all short.
It is.
Without depth or complexity.
Yeah.
And the complexity is what changed literally our ability to function with our brains.
Right.
And to kind of level up, as the kids would say.
Yeah.
And we're going to level down with it.
Let's hope not. So I think this really leans into the import of liberal arts and sciences.
Sure.
Right? Like this is the value statement of certainly AI could be a tool, but it will never replace our ability to have this higher level integrated thinking and learning. And that's what we need. That's what society needs. So it's the and that I think our campus is really embracing.
When it comes to other academic pursuits now, I mean, you talked about, your own background as a PA and what you are already bringing to campus and a vision for what you can offer. Is that because you feel like whether it's nursing or related jobs, those are going to be stable no matter what happens in sort of an AI future?
Yes. I think, the nature of the work may change a little bit, but it's a human connector field. And all of those that I referenced earlier, PA, NP, social work, are human connector fields. And so that's an absolute opportunity. Our PA program had a wait list last year, and that's not unheard of across the country. So we know we're going to need a healthcare workforce that's meeting this aging demographic. And so to really lean in on that is important. The other opportunity for Nazareth that I'm hopeful will come out of our strategic planning discussions is there's about 41 million Americans across the U.S. who have some college but no degree. So they made some investment in their education at some point in time, but didn't leave with the credential. So what are we at Nazareth doing to meet that adult learner market? That takes the demographic cliff or decline equation, it puts it aside a little bit to say, but we have this other market. And so I'm hopeful that'll come out of our strategic planning process of what undergraduate programs and majors should we be devising and crafting specifically for that market to know that those learners need adaptability, flexibility online. What does that look like? And how do we make it a distinctly Nazareth experience?
Are there going to be some majors that are just going by the wayside? I mean, when I was in school, I didn't have a minor, I had two specializations, and one of them was Spanish. And for those who are, I'm an Italian major, I'm a French major. Do you need to do that anymore? I mean, with what technology is doing, are those going away?
No, definitely not at Nazareth. We have a robust foreign language culture departments.
And that's not changing? That's not shrinking?
No. I mean, traditional enrollments might be shrinking, but the way we've pivoted it, and I have to give credit here to the leadership that's done this, is we've made it more about the cultural intersection and strengthening the cultural influences in our region in Italian and French, Spanish. So we have a lot of community level programming that happens on our campus, and we bring our community partners to campus. So the traditional major, I understand what you're saying, and I think there's opportunity here. Again, I think it gets back to something I said earlier is the series of absolutes doesn't work. What should work is us creating the opportunity and articulating the why. And if we believe that foreign languages are important, we should show the why of that work.
Talking to President Maureen Finney of Nazareth University. And so let's make sure we do also explain, we've talked a couple times about the enrollment cliff. And the general way I would describe that is around the financial collapse of 2007, 2008 for a lot of different reasons, some tied to just family stability and all of those factors. Americans started having fewer babies. Now that generation would be graduating high school, going to college, but there's fewer of them.
Yes.
And so there's fewer students to even apply for college, and there's pressure on colleges because your incoming classes are going to be smaller. Is that generally true?
Yeah, that's true.
That's a true story.
That's a true story, especially in the Northeast. Not every region of the country is experiencing the decline like the Northeast is, but we have an enormous amount of higher education institutions, and demographically we have seen a significant decline. So it makes the whole mission market value proposition discussion even more important because it's a competitive field. Students now, not like, way back when you applied to 3 or 4 schools, they're applying to 12 or 15. So, you're happy to see the application number come in, but you're like, are they really committed to this institution? So we've had to be very intentional early and often about connecting with sophomores in high school, juniors in high school, even freshmen, 8th graders, to start building the narrative of why Nazareth. Because if you wait until their senior year, it's too late.
And how much do you think we will see other institutions close because of this problem? Do you think the closures are mostly done, or could there be more coming?
I think, looking at some of the trend data, I do think there may be more coming. What I'm hopeful is, and higher education hasn't always been known for this, is urgency and action. I think, when you see a trend occurring, it's incumbent upon the leadership team to act in a way that protects and strengthens the institution. So we are laser focused at Nazareth on that I have a huge responsibility as the president of ensuring a thriving future for that amazing institution. And it never wanes on me. I am always remembering of that.
All right, some emails here. Jack wants to know, Jack says his perspective is he thinks the Trump administration is hostile to higher ed and wants to know if this new law about ROI is related to trying to get more higher ed either squeezed or closed. What do you think?
Thanks, Jack. So I would say that, the new legislation that's come down has definitely put higher education on its heels in a way that perhaps we haven't been before. It certainly would be nice to be part of the conversation when these initiatives or acts come down to say, what are you really looking at? Why is this so important to be part of the solution versus being reactive to the act? So I can see why Jack would think that, and I'm a glass 3/4 full gal that institutions like Nazareth have a good story to tell, so we're ready to tell it. I think there are some institutions, and I think maybe Nazareth was here at one point, where we take our, humble humility really well. We can't anymore. We have to say what the value is, and I'm okay with doing that. And I hope there can be just continued collegiality across the aisles.
Okay, and I probably should have explained to Jack, or at least have President Finney explain a little bit. So if you heard earlier this hour, President Finney describing this new, is it a law?
It's an act.
It's an act from this
yeah.
administration saying, essentially, if you are offering a major, you have to show there is an ROI for those graduates. Mm-hmm. They are earning more than just an average high school student.
Correct. Over a 3-year period. They're going to look at 3 years of data.
Okay, but here's the part we didn't get to. Or what?
Or then the Title IV funding will be lost for that degree. So what is that? That's the student's ability to take out federal loans. So
they're not closing you down.
They're not closing you down.
Jack thinks they're using this to go after you and close you.
No, but they will if you don't have the data that supports the ROI of that degree over a 3-year period. So it's not even over a 1-year period. They're looking at 3 years of data with the institution supplies. Then they could restrict your funding.
Okay, here. Jack, I hope that settles that there. And a couple of follow-ups from Dallas. He just wanted to know directly if there has been cheating on campus with AI at Nazareth. I mean, I think you said you don't think it's a big problem.
I don't think it's a big problem. Because I'm not directly in the loop, I can't say definitively if it is or it isn't. What I can say is that the faculty are very attuned to this issue, and they work with students to ensure that the students understand the expectations of the course. Where we fell, I think, last year short a little bit, or maybe the year prior, was when students will come to us and say, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. Well, now they know. And so they know each syllabus has their statement on it, whether they can or cannot use it. So it's like anything, Dallas. I think there's probably margins, perhaps, of intellectual integrity issues, but it's not a preponderance at Nazareth's campus.
And he's pointing out, I did not see this. I'm going to trust his fact check on this, because we talked a couple of weeks ago about the fact that a high school in Salamanca was getting ready to use an AI humanoid robot in a classroom. However, Dallas says that's been canceled at Salamanca. So we're going to find out if that's true. But the question is Nazareth going to get AI humanoid professors or teachers?
That is not on the strategic plan.
Teaching assistants? Okay. I mean, listen, you can do what you want to do, but I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
I think humans should still be teaching.
Yeah, I do too.
On hold is what we're being told. So that is on hold at Salamanca.
Interesting. I'll have to look that up.
It's a whole interesting other thing here. And so maybe let's close with this here. We've covered a lot here, And you do write that you want to be a presidency of many, that, you really want to sort of draw on your entire campus.
Absolutely.
To be a good leader.
Yes.
What does a good leader look like at higher ed in 2026?
Yeah, I think innovation, action, transparency, communicating the good and communicating the not so good so that the community is brought along with you on the journey. Strengthening the endowment, diversifying revenue, supporting the student experience holistically. Those are my aims. And I think while I'm thrilled to be called the president, it is such a deep honor that I'm in this position because I really value what we do on our campus and the extraordinary colleagues that I have in faculty, administration, and staff. It really is second to none. And I'm just so thrilled to be here.
In our last minute, describe what you think is probably the biggest challenge that you have that maybe a university president when you were going to school didn't have.
I would say the dependency on tuition is certainly a challenge. I don't know what the business model was way back when I was an undergrad, but knowing that every single student matters, not just from an ethical standpoint, because of course they do, but from a financial standpoint. That is the fulcrum of several meetings a week of how are we supporting the student experience and how can we further strengthen the institution.
And however long your tenure is, when you are done on your last day, you will say, I will measure my success by what?
By knowing that Nazareth is a thriving higher education institution with national recognition.
National recognition.
Correct.
You're putting a stamp down on it.
I am.
Okay.
We're doing it.
Will you come back sometime?
I would love to. Thank you so much.
In terms of higher education, there's always something to talk about, and there's a lot changing. And I will say that Nazareth University is staffed by people in the comms department. They are incredibly well responsive. And there's a lot of schools like that, but you're here, so I will just say to your team, thank you.
Yes, I have a great team.
And let's continue to have this conversation with not only you, but your tremendous staff.
I would love that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.
President Maureen Finney of Nazareth University. More connections coming up in a moment.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.